Sports Center.
Welcome to Union Sports Center. Today is Joe Second, and I am your host, Joe Anderson. Today we've got a real interesting one for you. We'll be discussing particle kinetics and kinematics of a rugby and football tackle. With me today on the field is Mr. Brendan DeFalco, our rugby analyst. Hi, Brendan. And our football analyst, Miss Yesenia Castellan. Hi, Yesenia.
American football is a game played by two opposing teams of 11 players with an oval-shaped ball.
The teams involved in the game are split into two conferences, with each conference having 4 divisions. The conferences are AFC, American Football Conference, and NFC, National Football Conference. The divisions are just north, south, east, and west.
Very popular in the United States. The most special day for football is the Super Bowl Sunday, in which the last 2 standing teams play for a chance to be the NFL champion. For our football tackling analysis, we will be modeling our system on the Minnesota Vikings running back Adrian Peterson and the North Carolina Panthers linebacker Luke Kuechly. For the football analysis, I chose to model the tackle between Luke Kuechly and Adrian Peterson. Luke Kuechly's acceleration was 6 meters per second squared to the right, heading towards the ball carrier, Adrian Peterson, whose acceleration before colliding was 8 meters per second squared to the left. As you can see from my kinematics investigation, in order to find the speed at which Luke was running, I integrated his acceleration and applied the given constants to determine his speed as a function of time, which was found to be 16 meters per second. From this information, I was able to integrate again to determine his position to be 3t squared meters. The same analysis approach was applied to Adrian Peterson's motion, as shown. His speed was found to be 18 meters per second, while his distance was found to be 4t squared meters. The total distance between Luke Kuechly and Adrian Peterson was 10 yards when starting from rest, which is equivalent to 9.144 meters. Using the separate equations found to determine the players' final positions, I was able to set the separate distances equal to 9.144 meters, denoted by the equation S1 plus S2 equals 9.144. From this given equation, I was able to find the final time that it took each one of them to reach their positions, which was 1.14 seconds. From this time, the initial velocities and momentums for each player was determined. Additionally, we found the momentum of each player in order to further analyze their collision. So P1 is the momentum of the tackler. We know that the momentum is given by mv, where the mass of the tackler is 109.7 kilograms, and the velocity which we just found, which was 6.86 meters per second. From this value, the momentum of the tackler was determined to be 752.54 kilograms per meter per second. We were also able to find the momentum of the ball carrier, given that the ball carrier's mass was 98.4 kilograms and his speed, which was 9.14 meters per second. The ball carrier's momentum was 899.38 kilograms times meters per second. Using the conservation of momentum, the tackler's momentum is pointing to the right, while the ball carrier's momentum is pointing to the left, resulting in a final momentum of 146.83 kilograms times meters per second, pointing to the left. Using F equals ma, we were able to find the force from the tackler to stop the ball carrier's momentum, where A is equal to dv dt. When we multiply dt on both sides of the equation, we end up with f dt is equal to mdv, where dt is equal to the average time for a football tackle, which we found to be 0.2 seconds. and mdv is equal to the momentum of the ball carrier, which we found to be 899.376 kilograms times meters per second. With basic algebra, we were able to find that the force exerted is 4,496.88 newtons.
Now let's get some facts about rugby.
Rugby union, or just simply rugby, is a game played by two teams of 15 players with an oval ball. The object of the game is to utilize lateral passes, kicks, and running plays to bring the ball into the opponent's try zone to score.
One large difference between rugby and American football is that in rugby, the ball is always contested. Once a tackle is made, a ruck must be formed by the offensive team in order to prevent the defense from stealing the ball.
Finally, in rugby, it is illegal to tackle a player without wrapping their body somewhere below the chest and bringing him safely down. This differs from American football, where it is legal to tackle a player by simply colliding with the opponent without wrapping.
For our rugby tackling analysis, we will be modeling our system on the New Zealand All Blacks' Ma Nonu and the Irish national team's Rob Kearney. We'll be modeling a tackle between Rob Kearney and Ma Nonu. In this model, Rob Kearney, with a mass of 94.8 kilograms, will be the ball carrier, while Ma Nonu, with a mass of 106.141 kilograms, will act as the tackler. The two players begin 5 meters apart from each other. As at the start of a play in rugby, this is the minimum required distance that defenders must be from the starting spot of the ball. Rob Kearney will start from rest and accelerate at 3 meters per second squared, while Ma Nonu will start at rest and accelerate at 4 meters per second squared, so that he may meet Rob Kearney before he gains meters. In order to determine the final velocity and position of Rob and Ma, we used the same calculations we did for our football analysis, and found time of collision to be 1.19 seconds, the final velocity of Rob to be 4.29 meters per second at a distance of 2.14 meters, and the final velocity of Ma to be 5.17 meters per second at a distance of 2.86 meters. Plugging in our velocity and mass values for each player into the momentum equation, we determined that Rob Kearney would have a momentum of 406.69 newton seconds acting to the right, while Ma Nonu would have a momentum of 606.07 newton seconds acting to the left. Using our impulse equation and approximating the time of collision to be 0.2 seconds, we found that Ma Nonu would have to expend a 2,033.45 newton force onto Rob Kearney in order to stop him at the point of contact. Dividing the change in velocity of each player by the change in time then gives us a deceleration of 21.45 meters per second for Rob Kearney and a deceleration of 28.4.
Common injuries that result because of football include strains, sprains, dislocations, and concussions. Concussions have been a major issue in our nation because concussions have led to severe mental issues such as Parkinson's disease, depression, and dementia. Approximately between 43,000 and 67,000 NFL players experience a concussion in every season.
Although head injury is less common in professional rugby players than it is in NFL players, the contact sport nature of rugby means that there are still many potential dangers for rugby players. Despite the lack of helmets, rugby players are in fact more likely to sustain general muscle injuries due to repeated impact. Our analysis showed that the average tackler must only exert about half the force an NFL player does in order to stop the ball carrier. However, the average recorded number of tackles per player in football has been recorded to be 4 tackles, while the average number of tackles per player in rugby has been recorded to be 16 tackles. This repeated contact without the use of protective gear often results in greater muscle strain-related injuries than in the NFL.
Based on our earlier calculations on the forces that is exerted on the ball carrier for rugby and football, we noticed that the force is higher in football compared to rugby. This is because it is more likely for a player to get injured in football rather than rugby, even though rugby is also dangerous too. Our calculations are basically saying that both sports are dangerous, but don't let it discourage you from participating in football or watching football, because as you can see, we are Americans and we know.
Oh, your time keeps going on.